Michael Units, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of minutes, so under licenses and permits, we have an application for Jason Robbins, the Norton Fire and Police Department, for a one-day beer and wine license to be utilized at the Everett Leonard Park on Saturday, August 19th, 2017, from 12 noon to 8 p.m. for a private party. Does anyone have any questions, concerns? Anything? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the application for Jason Robbins for the one-day beer and wine license at the Everett Leonard Park for Saturday, August 19th, from 12 to 8 p.m. for a private party.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, and for the record, all departments have signed off on that application. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call?
Do a roll call, okay. Roll call, Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Salvo?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Okay, next we have an application of Edmund J. Matthews for a one-day beer and wine license to be utilized at the Everett Leonard Parks on Sunday, July 23rd, 2017, from 12 noon to 6 p.m. for a private party. You have an application in your file, and all departments have signed off on the application. Chair entertain a motion to approve the request of Edmund J. Matthews for one-day beer and wine.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Oh,
Aye.
sorry. Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Salvo?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. And finally, the application for the Norton High School cross-country boosters for a road race to be held entirely on school grounds. A fundraiser for the cross-country team to be held on Saturday, October 28th, 2017, from 10:15 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Again, we have to sign off on the application from the fire chief and the police chief. Are there any questions or anything regarding the request? This is done before. We've done this a few
Every year.
times. This is a zombie run, is that what this one is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Usually it's just on the track, and around the track at the school,
Yeah, like through the woods, and just not, it's all on school
all on
grounds,
school
so.
property? Okay. Any questions? No. Chair entertains a motion to approve the application of Norton High School cross-country boosters for a road race to be held on school grounds on Saturday, October 28, 2017, from 10:15 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Where's my clerk? We have an application, 7:05 p.m. hearing, an application is Kelly's Place at the Crossings Incorporated, DBA Kelly's Place Manager, Carol A. Cusack, for alterations of premises to add a patio to its common vicular all alcohol license to expose, keep for sale, and sell all kinds of alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises at 292 East Main Street, Norton, Massachusetts. And we're right on time. Attorney Rich, how are you?
Yes, Daniel Rich for Kelly's Place, Carol Cusack. Mr. Chairman, it's actually not to add a patio. The patio's already there. It has seats. It's just to allow her to serve outside on the patio. There's roughly going to be about 20 seats out there. Before, I've already met with the building inspector because she does need some fencing to be put up. But we're going to, if in fact she gets that, then we'll go with the building inspector and coordinate that with the ABCC to see what, in fact, they would require to allow her to do that. I'm going to give you the green cards. We did not get them all back. I do have my green slips here for everyone. I just don't want to surrender these because these are my proof that I did mail them out. So she only has about 20 seats out there, maybe 25 at tops. And she has, in the summertime, she has seating out there now, but she doesn't serve alcohol. People can eat breakfast out there. But she wants to be able to serve alcohol for lunch and for supper on good days. So that's why we're here before you. We've been before you before to expand from beer and wine to an all-alcoholic. Now we're going to ask them to have it seated outside. I don't believe there have been any liquor infractions since she started. She hasn't been, right? I didn't think so. So
The common vicular license does cover the additional 20 seats outside, I believe.
yeah, I believe it does, yeah.
This is for the alcohol
Yes.
part of the license. Anyone have any questions? Concerns? Anything? What are your hours of operation? When, I mean, normally you're not selling this stuff for breakfast, so
Right.
what times of the day are you going to be using this liquor license?
It could be from lunchtime, maybe from 12 to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're open till 9.
You're open to 9 PM?
That's it.
And during the week, what time you close? Monday, Tuesday?
2, 6 to 2.
6 to 2, okay. Okay, anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to, any concerns or anything you want to bring up? If you do, please come up to the microphone, identify yourself so we can have it on the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Alice Pappas, and I reside at 3 Danforth Lane in Red Mill Village. And my concern is related to safety issues. I realize there have not been any infractions, but we now have people literally parking across the street from Kelly's on the east side of 123, creating a road hazard. I've seen it on the weekends. We also have people continuing to park on Hastings and obstructing the safe exit and entry into Red Mill. And I would anticipate that with this expansion of the liquor license, the popularity of the restaurant is going to increase, and I am concerned about the safety factor, and I'd like to hear how that will be addressed.
Good question.
May I,
Go ahead.
may I ask,
Ma'am, could you come back, please, for 1 sec? Oh. Can we ask you one question? Now we made you go all the way back. Could you come up so we can ask you one question?
seeing you live there and you're talking about the parking problems, does it happen, I know we've heard about like Saturdays and Sundays for breakfast. Are you seeing problems at other times?
Well, I'm not out there policing it, but I have to say that I was taken back this past month at seeing these cars parked on the side of 123, and obviously they're crossing that very busy road to get in and out of Kelly's. And I anticipate that this is going to continue. At the very least, I would expect some signage to be put there related to this fact, but I feel as though we are looking at an accident that is waiting to happen. It's very concerning.
It's just that where you live there, I just passed by, I was just wondering if you could enlighten me on the fact, have you...
I can't speak to the frequency. I know that this board has heard issues related to the parking inside, but to have this now extended to people parking along the side of 123 is highly concerning.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Sir, come on up, please.
My name is Cooper Winston. I live at 49 Cotting Road, also in Red Mill Village. I just want to back up what Alice has said. I've seen the parking be a real issue on the weekend. Weekend mornings is one of her heaviest business hours, and we're very glad that Kelly's is busy there. But I did see the car parked on the other side of 123 this weekend, and I've noticed that cars are parking on Barker Lane on both sides of Barker Lane, which allows for barely one-way traffic in and out of Red Mill Village, and there are two cars parked in a curb cut that's maximum 10 feet long. So there's 30 feet of cars parked in a 10 feet long. That just, they have put yellow paint on our deeded parking spaces, and that seems to be observed very well. I will say, but everywhere else the parking is just pretty much out of control. I also would like to ask about the fencing. What you've mentioned, that fencing has to go up on this patio.
Yes.
Is that going to
Fencing around where they're going to serve the alcohol,
there's a deed that gives Red Mill Village, I'm not a trustee anymore, but that gives Red Mill Village the right to at least comment on any architectural changes on the building. Do you intend to present that to the Board of Trustees?
Well, yes, but the building inspector will, yes. We've spoken with the building inspector, and we need his approval. He's going to come up and show us what he would require. I will mention that to him, tell him that there is a restriction. I do not know of a restriction, but we'll certainly address that.
It was in the, I don't have a copy, but it was in the purchase and sale agreement from Thorndike to,
I'd have to see that, I didn't see the.
okay, well, you can
We'll,
look.
we'll make that available to the building
Okay.
inspector also, absolutely.
Thank you.
One thing on the parking.
Yeah.
I know Carol is, one of her employees is going to go out there and try and direct them to park. She said she's going to start that now because she has had some problems. On weekends, we've had a temporary solution. She's been using other lots down the street and trucking her waitresses in. It frees up about 10 or 15 spaces. And we're still going to work at it because I did notice them on East Main Street, but that's the first time. The last couple of weeks is the first time I've noticed them on East Main Street. And I'm sure that we're going to have to deal with the Highway Department and the Police Department on that. Because I know we discussed this the last time. You said that the police have no authority inside, but obviously out on 123, which is, 123 has been a small road for too many years. It's supposed to be increased. Hopefully at some point in time it will be. But you'll have to address that. We'll absolutely have to address that with the police.
Stevens, could you check with the, have the police department give an assessment down there as to whether or not we should put parking signs, no parking signs on the east side of that street to make sure that they're not, I mean, it's a wonderful thing you're that busy. It really is. I mean, it's not, today it's tough enough to make a living, but, you know, to be that busy that people are having to park and run across a busy highway, a busy street is dangerous at the most, but at the same time, you know, we don't want to get hurt there either. And the parking issue, we're going to have to address at some point, and I think we need to maybe talk more about this between now and the next time we renew the licenses in January. I know we've talked about, the town has talked about looking at we have a small piece of land there that we own. Maybe trying to figure out a way to develop that in a way that maybe you could use that for additional parking or something. I'm not saying we're going to give it to you, but, you know, maybe we could work.
Sell it?
Well, maybe a lease agreement. Well, it's got a cemetery on it, so that's a problem. But, you know, we might be able to put some additional spaces back there that could be
Look into that,
utilized.
certainly.
And look at some other options. And I know that Red Mill has, I believe they have their post office, is that still in the building? And their trash goes on that property also.
That's what the gentleman said. They painted the yellow spaces.
Yeah.
They were reserving for just for those people, not for her.
Okay.
Her
I just
patient.
don't know that maybe we should look at another alternative to that too, you know, along the way. But I think we need to open up some dialogue between, you know, between you and us, maybe our public safety officials also. We don't have any jurisdiction on the Red Mill Village. They pretty much can patrol that themselves, and I do believe they have an option where they could actually impose some kind of fines or some kind of compensation for it, but that's between you and them. But in the meantime, you know, I personally, I don't have a problem with giving you the authorization here. Myself, I don't have a problem with it, but in the next few months, I would like to have some conversation about how we can maybe help to correct some of that parking issue. Red Mill's right. I mean, that right-of-way going in there has to be kept clear. Emergency personnel having to get in there. It could be a dangerous situation. I've seen many pictures over the years of the cars being parked out there right in front of no parking signs. I mean, I see it, and I understand the concerns. So, you know, if you could maybe, Mike, maybe you could arrange a sit down at some point with public safety and perhaps the building inspector or something and talk about some alternatives. It's great that you're doing some off-site parking. I've seen that happen before with busy places where you truck off your help and bring them in from another location. That does help a lot. It really does. But even with that issue, it appears that there's still a problem with parking. So we've got to figure out a better way to do it. I see a hand. Come on up.
My name is Oren Siegel. I live at Red Mill Village, 28 Cotting Road. I really have a question for Carol. I know it's very busy during the morning hours, especially on the weekends. I'm just curious, I've never really seen a lot of activity at night.
Right.
I'm just wondering, are you planning to do something different with your operations to warrant an overflow crowd to be able to sit outside that you're looking for this license? And if so, what were you planning to do to change it is one. And second, I'm assuming there's not going to be any loudspeakers or music outside as well. So,
Music?
yeah.
Oh, no.
But is there something that you're planning to do to increase the volume of your your dinner that would warrant needing to overflow to outside at this point?
No, it's just that during, like during the day, Saturdays and Sundays is basically when, if they want a mimosa or a Bloody Mary, a lot of people like to sit outside and have their breakfast and have a drink. It's not even, I mean, nighttime, I'm sure there'll be a few people. I'm not that busy at nighttime.
Would you have a problem limiting the hours then to closer to, I have no problem with those afternoon hours, but I think the more of the concern would be attracting more of an evening crowd or a drinking crowd. That's certainly not indicative of your store now.
No,
I understand that.
right,
That's why
right.
I was just wondering whether you were planning to change
No.
that operation.
No.
And certainly to
Everything's
accommodate
the same.
a luncheon mimosa is not a problem, or anything to anybody. And maybe that might be a way of addressing some of those possible concerns if we could limit those hours a little bit more, in terms of not as late at night, to 6 to 7 as opposed to 9, if you want to really increasing an evening crowd.
And we can take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Steele?
I was just going to say, 9 o'clock is kind of early to be shutting down, and it seems like every time we have this hearing for the alcohol license, other issues are coming up. So I think that the parking issues and hours of operation or whatever need to be taken care of under different circumstances at a different time, because they don't really affect what we're here doing tonight.
Right. No, I agree. And I think, obviously with noise too, and we've given out, this is not the first patio license extension we've done. We've done many. And I know the concern always is the amount of noise and it might create. And, as part of the licensing, if that becomes an issue, we talk about it in January. But, even though we've had that concern before, we haven't really had any major problems so far with any of the other establishments in town. So it's something that, again, just for the folks that understand, we have to renew a license every January. And if there are any concerns that we need to address, we can address it at that time. So, given that, anyone else have anyone in the audience, anything else? Anyone on the board?
I just wanted to,
Go ahead.
where 123 being a state road, would we have problems with the state highway department putting no parking on the opposite side?
No, that, we control
We
that.
control that
Okay.
section.
I knew we maintained it, but where it had a number on it, I didn't know if they didn't
Yeah,
stick the nose in.
no, they gave that to us.
Okay, that was nice.
That's our problem.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment
Yeah.
on it. I don't think that what she's trying to do is to warrant a nightclub by any means, by people coming outside drinking. I think it's just a convenient of the people that do want to sit outside and they want to have a beer or a glass of wine or whatever else she serves, they're allowed to do that, and take in the fresh air or the, summer breeze, so to speak, instead of sitting inside, so.
And I have seen people out there in the morning, sitting out there and having their breakfast, so. Anything else?
No.
Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Motion second. Mr. Steele?
yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Salvo? Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Okay, we have on the table, we have an application for Kelly's Place at the Crossing Incorporated DBA. Kelly's Place manager Carol A. Cusack for alterations of premises to add a patio to its common vicular all alcoholic license to expose, keep for sale, and to sell all kinds of alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises at 292 East Main Street, Norton, Mass. I will add to that, we'd like to have the police department take a look at the parking on East Main Street, and also to offer assistance and
Certainly.
discussion about the parking issue. The motion?
So moved, but with an amendment,
Yeah, go ahead.
subject to the building inspector approval of the fence, railing, enclosure, whatever is
fine.
needed.
It's accepted, okay. The motion, we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Salvo?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I do vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take care of that.
Thank you. Okay, under announcements, we have a couple, Mr. Salvo?
Announcements, we're on?
Yes.
Yes, I have quite a few tonight. Start off with, I have a rabies clinic will be held at the Town of Norton Fire Department on 70 East Main Street, Saturday, April 1st, The hours are 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., $13 per animal. Dogs should be on leashes, cats and carriers. Dog licensing, town clerk's office will also be open to proceed to process dog licenses during the clinic. Altered dogs, $16, unaltered dogs, $21. Includes late fees of $5 as of 3/1, and an additional $1 as of 4/1. We have a annual Easter egg hunt will be held on Saturday, April 8th, at 1 p.m. at the Town Common. This is free, an event for Norton residents ages 2 to 8 years old. Bring your own baskets and bags to collect eggs in your child's corresponding age group area. And bring your camera to snap a picture with the Easter Bunny. There'll be farm animals to visit, face painting as well. Be sure to be on time so you don't miss out on the fun. The egg collecting will begin promptly at 1 p.m. They're having a candlelight vigil for opiate overdose deaths to raise awareness of this current crisis. It's sponsored by NOPE, Norton Opiate Prevention Education, and the Bristol Norfolk Medical Reserve Corp. This will be held on Wednesday, April 26th, 2017, at 7 p.m., Yale Schoolyard, 64 West Main Street in Norton. If you have a loved one or a friend you would like to have acknowledged, please forward their names to the Norton Board of Health Office, 508-285-0263, or email bohoffice@nortonmaus.com, and all names will be read at the vigil. Inclement weather, the meat will be in the school cafeteria. Battery-operated candles provided. We also have a hazardous waste day. It's going to be held April 29th, 2017, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., be in the Town Hall parking lot, 70 East Main Street. The Highway Department will be open to drop off your convenience, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And there's a list of stuff on the Norton website of all the things you can do, what you can bring, what you can bring. I'm sure I'll read all this by the end of, before it comes to April 29th, but I don't want to read them all tonight. But yeah, the Norton website, you'll have a list of what you can do and what you can't bring. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Bremo?
I have nothing.
Steele?
Mr. Chairman.
Hey, under new business, you know, everything under new business, right? You have anything? Nope. Okay. Under old business, we have review and to vote on the following proposed amendments to the Norton zoning bylaws. Article 3, zoning map and districts along Leonard Street, I-495 and Route 123. Article 3, zoning map and districts along portions of Taunton/New Taunton Avenue and Eddy Street. And Article 3, zoning map and districts along a portion of Mansfield Avenue, Freeman Street, Robinson Lane, and Reservoir Street. Mr. Units?
The first article, which on the warrant is, let me find it. Does everyone have a copy of the warrant? Is Article 8 on the warrant. It has been voted recommended by the planning board on your sheet. And this is to rezone the property on both sides of Leonard Street at Route 123 to industrial. And the planning board is recommending support for that article.
Now, was that the meeting? That was a unanimous vote of the board. Does anyone have any questions? Everyone knows this is the Condine Leonard Street project that's being discussed. Seeing no further questions, make a continued motion to support. Article 8, is it?
Article
Yes.
8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, others in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Come on up. I'll hold that for a minute.
Thank you. My name is Oren Siegel. I live at 28 Cotting Road in Red Mill Village. Before you voted on this, I would just have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. I realize the board has repeatedly referenced the potential of some income coming from this property. And I understand the town's quest continually for additional funds. I know we're looking at an override, which I assume, if passed, would address some of those concerns. Nobody's really expressed what those extra funds would go for. My concern would be and my question to the board, is if you were to leave aside the funding of having some extra money, which anybody here would say they love some extra money in their pockets. If you look at this property, which, as you all are aware of, is extremely environmentally sensitive. I think it's a wetland protection district, it's a flood zone, it's a wetland, there's a Canoe River district. Is there any way you would ever consider, as a first choice, putting any industrial property, any industrial use to that land? And I can't imagine anybody would say yes to that. The zoning bylaws basically say as its purpose is promoting health, safety, convenience, and morals and welfare of its inhabitants. I would suggest that the funding of the town does not fall under that specific purpose of a zoning bylaw. It's to protect the residents. And putting an industrial plant, an industrial use, a commercial use on that piece of property is dangerous to that environment, for one. The second point I would make is traffic. When the 274 East Main Street was going forward, they did a traffic study. It was done in 2013. And that traffic study was looked at the normal progression and the progression including that property. It went from 2013 to 2018. They projected 125% increase in traffic, just based on that projection. That they determined would put the entrance to Red Mill Village at a level of service F, which is failing. Now, from what I understand, most planning boards would never consider increasing any project that would go beyond that, beyond the failing position. I'd also point out that Red Mill Village, as you know, is a 55 and over community. And basically, the studies have shown, and let me just read something. It said basically that as you have an aging community, a study found that with each advancing age after 65, the odds of getting into a crash that involves turning left increases by 8%. The study that I cited, which increased by 125% and resulted in an F, was without considering the Avalon property, which is going to add 290 units. And it doesn't contemplate the kind of projects you're proposing now. An industrial use would require, if everything was industrial use and a commercial, an industrial use would require 1,000 parking spaces. Commercial use would require 4,000 parking spaces. You're adding that kind of traffic, which ideally would probably hit the same peak hours coming up and down that street. That's going to become a dangerous situation for the people in my community. Two of the things that were referenced in some of the material that you keep on referring to is the fact that the town can't afford the $3 million that they could probably get from the sale of this property. I would suggest that $3 million, I would assume that $3 million is predicated on their being able to rezone the property. This town should not be in the position of making money for the owner of that property. If in fact they can get it somewhere else, that's fine. But I would suggest, as has been suggested by, I think, the town manager, that without this kind of development and without giving it rezoning, they wouldn't be able to get the $3 million that they're getting now. And just lastly, I keep on saying things about, well, if they don't go there, this 40B projects are going to go there. I spent a year of my life last year opposing Thorndike in their project at 274 East Main Street. With the help of this board, we reduced what they were looking for from 235 to 188 units. I know what 40B can do, and I agree with you. The thing that I would like to point out is right now between Red Mill Village, the Avalon project, and Turtle Crossing, there will be 650 affordable housing units within this one area. Given that, and given what Mr. Eunice has said, after 1 year, there's going to be a moratorium on East Main Street for 7 years. I can't imagine any big developer would want to risk going into that kind of development with facing a moratorium of 7 years. Trust me, it took Thorndike a year to get their permit, and that was without an appeal. I would suggest that any big-size development would face similar opposition by the people of this town, myself included, and that's without an appeal, making that kind of a project more risky and very unlikely. Thank you.
Well, I would have to say that, we obviously haven't gone into this blindfolded. We have some control of what's going to happen down there. I understand the issue about traffic. That'll all be a part of a study. We have new traffic lights going in that area. That'll all be part of a study. As far as the land goes, I'm probably would be one of the first people to say that one of the first conversations we had was, how can we buy this for the town? How can we buy it, protect it, do whatever we have to do? And unfortunately, there isn't any money available to do that. This town twice shot down the Preservation Act, where every time a property is sold or bought or whatever, a portion of that proceeds goes into a fund for the purpose of buying a piece of land like this. It happened twice. This Board of Selectmen put it up on the ballot, on the warrant twice, trying to make it happen. We could, in reality, have that kind of money available to buy this today, but we don't have that ability. I am more than confident, as far as the environmental issues go, that unlike a 40B or any of the projects where they just pretty much sign off on, the stringent controls that are put in place, not only from the local level, which is, we all know they are very strong and very good at what they do, to the state levels, to the federal levels. I'm pretty confident that we have more control over an industrial piece of land like this than we would over a residential piece. So, I weighed all these things. Would I like it in my backyard? No. But at the same time, I'd have to look at it with an open mind and try to figure out the best way to get there. We are in a position today financially because we, as a community, have always pretty much lived on the edge. And, we have to start looking beyond today and figure out better ways to maintain a level of services in future years, whether you support an override or not. This has got nothing to do with an override. We're here today because we didn't do enough of this. We rezoned, and I don't care what anyone calls it, we rezoned John Scott Boulevard. That was industrial. We rezoned it to residential. We put up some beautiful homes. It all looks nice. We have the widest road probably in our town going through a residential area that was designed for industrial uses. We dropped the ball on that years ago. We really did. That was where the industry was supposed to go. This is the last opportunity we have off of 495, and it is our hope and our desire, and it's probably our understanding that most of this traffic will be funneled back on the 495, off and on the 495, and have a little bit less impact on the rest of East Main Street. It's going to have some. People are going to realize there's other ways to get out of here, other ways to get around, but it's going to have some impact. But, in my opinion, this is the best solution for that piece of property, and I don't know what the value of it is. All I know is, from a point of view of creating tax revenues, jobs, which are very important to me, I think it's just the best use for the property. If we had $3 million, I could see a bunch of ball fields out in that property. It would have been a beautiful place to put it, but we're not in a position to buy it. And we've already exercised that option, and this developer has put enough time and money into it that we should at least give him the opportunity to try to sell to the rest of the town. Mr. Salvo.
Mr. Chairman, us voting on this to rezone this after the planning board made a unanimous decision at that meeting doesn't in fact give the developer a green light to do whatever he wants. So that people have to understand, they still have to follow the same procedure as anybody else that comes before the planning board to build whatever they desire, have to meet the criteria. I mean, we don't know exactly what people are going to be coming in here to looking to relocate or to move to Norton. So this is not a done deal by any means by the developer just to go build 8 buildings, because they still have to meet all the rules and regulations to proceed to whatever they decide they're going to build.
other point is the fact that I would say approximately 60 to 70% of the property is going to remain environmentally friendly because they're not going to touch any of the wooded areas.
Yeah.
They can't touch any of the wet areas. And the industrial portion is pretty innocuous. It's probably going to be warehouses, which don't employ a ton of people. And they do have truck traffic, which is going to be directed away from residential areas further down Leonard Street, and they're going to be forced to go right down to 123, which will be improved by the developer with a traffic light. So, to me, while I understand environmentally, affecting property, I think this will probably impact the environment less than most developments would.
Mr. Chairman. And as Bob was saying, any building over 10,000 square feet requires site plan approval, so each time, people will have a chance to come in and have a say on what gets done on the property.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay, getting back to my original request on Article 8, that the board support Article 8.
I believe we already have
I second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Okay, any
Yep.
further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next one, the zoning map and districts along portions of Taunton, New Taunton Avenue, and Eddy Street, which is Article 10. Article 10 was not recommended by the planning board. This was an article that was addressing, what happened here was a modular home was built on a piece of industrial land on 140 as a show house. And the intent was obviously to show people different versions of the type of house that you could buy through this company. And that was allowed under industrial because it was a commercial venture. I'm told, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, I'm told that every window in the house and every door is different. Because the developer wanted to show the different styles that were available to the people. The company went out of business, went up for auction, and this gentleman bought it fully intending to live in it for residential purposes. And under industrial, in an industrial zone, it is not allowed. So he now owns this property, but cannot live in, well, I don't think, he can live in it, right?
Yeah.
He can live in it, but he can't, it's not residential property. So the intent was to rezone a section of that area where there are other houses, that are also in industrial land, to make it residential. And the neighbors who own industrial properties with houses on it stood up and opposed the solution, the idea of rezoning their property also. So if you rezone one piece of land and you don't rezone the other, that's called spot zoning, and we're not allowed, under our zoning bylaws, we're not allowed to do that. So that's the reason why the planning board decided not to support it. So I would, as a positive, I would make a motion to support Article 10.
Second.
A motion, a second, to support Article 10. Is there any further discussion? Supporting means obviously you're going to. If you vote no, that means we're not in support of it, right?
Yeah.
So if I can get it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can understand where we shouldn't rezone all pieces of property because one person is unhappy with the zoning.
Right.
So I think just out of a democratic way of thinking that
Okay,
majority should rule,
okay.
especially seeing the other people who've probably been residents much longer.
Exactly. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
So it's four in opposition. So Article 9 is the zoning map and districts along a portion of Mansfield Avenue, Freeman Street, Robinson Lane, and Reservoir Street. This is Mr. Yuna's favorite conversation, discussion. You want to bring us up to speed on what's going on over there?
The proposal right now actually is smaller than the proposal that was tabled last year. The properties along Reservoir Street have been taken out of this proposal, and so this proposal will rezone the property on both sides of 140 from Reservoir down to Smith Lane to Village Commercial. It's currently zoned commercial, a majority of the property, and so the residential portions were taken out. So going from commercial to Village Commercial, it's kind of what is there. There's such a mix along there right now. Village Commercial will allow you to have housing or commercial on the same piece of property. So the only discussion at all we've had was the property that is across from the liquor store that runs along the reservoir, where someone was looking at building condos out along the reservoir and have restaurants and businesses out front. There were people there on Reservoir Street that weren't real happy to rezone it, but there were also owners of the land there who were in support of rezoning the property at the planning board hearing.
One comment that kept coming up, and we're not going to pretend to have the answers to it, and that was talking about how certain parcels of land in that area became zoned commercial or residential or whatever. We don't have the answers to some of those questions, but all we can tell you is, as of right now, that is the way it is. That's the way it's zoned, and we're trying to take all this hodgepodge of different zoning and trying to put it under one umbrella. That's one of the intents of this whole project. On another note, getting back to what we talked about earlier about future development, as most of you know, right behind Roach Brothers Plaza where the mobile home park is, that's where our sewerage ends, Norton Sewer Line ends. We've done most of the reservoir area. We haven't done the rest around the reservoir. The intent would be to force any future developer in that particular parcel of land or along that piece of land to not only put in town sewerage, but also to improve our town water lines that run around all that property. So there's a hidden agenda in there too, so to speak, but again, as you develop and we need to make improvements, we can force developers to help pay for some of the cost of this infrastructure we have to put in the ground. So there's many reasons to support this article. To me, it's just cleaning it up. That's all we're trying to do. If you own a house now, nothing changes. I mean, you can still do what you want with the house. If you want to put a shop in there, you can do that. But if you think about the gas station and the produce barn and the liquor store and the auto repair shop and the other liquor store, and I mean, there's so much there already that it kind of makes sense to just try to get it all under one zoning, so. Anyone have any comments, questions?
No, I do have a comment. I just think people are very confused about the whole thing. You know, that went on for quite some time at that meeting. And, you know, two comments that I have is that people, I think, were confused about tax rate. Tax rate's the same, whether it's commercial, village commercial, or, you know, industrial. We don't have a separate tax rate. And I think the other not confusing issue, but, you know, if you buy a piece of property that has a house on it and it's commercial, you can't do an addition until you, the house was okay, but to add an addition, you needed to go before zoning to get an approval for that. With the village commercial part, things would go a lot smoother and people would be able to do a lot more with their property.
Agree. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to support Article 9 on the warrant.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Before we get off Mansfield Ave, Mr. Yunus, can you give us an update on what happened on the fire over there? Is there any additional news or anything?
There is a $5,000 reward for the suspected arsonist. Have not heard anything else other than that.
But there were two separate fires, right?
There was a fire in a barrel across the street an hour and a half before the house went on fire. So the fire across the street was put out by one of the police officers with a fire extinguisher, and then an hour and a half later, the home was lit on fire. The fire started on the outside of the house and there was one woman living in the house that the fire department got her out. The smoke detectors actually had not started going off yet when they got there, because the fire was on the outside, and the smoke hadn't gotten into the house yet, so she was not alerted that there was a fire until they got there.
So if you see something in your neighborhood that doesn't quite look right, feel free to, must dial 911 and make sure that, it is properly addressed. Don't be embarrassed over the fact that maybe, I happen to be out in my backyard and you didn't recognize me and you made a phone call. We need to find out if this is true, in fact, an issue. If it is intentional, we all need to be concerned about that. So if you see something that doesn't quite look right, make sure you make that phone call. 911, let them know what you're seeing, and let our public safety officials address the issue.
That went to a second alarm.
Yeah.
That house is, they call balloon construction, where they had walls inside of walls where it traveled through. It was a tough one for them to actually get under control there for a while, so, I mean, they had their hands full.
And
Could have been worse.
Fortunately, the elderly lady living in the house
Right.
never woke up, wasn't even aware her house was on fire. And fortunately, it didn't get to a point where, the whole thing went up and we would be talking about, something worse than what actually happened.
Exactly.
So, fortunately, that did happen. Property can be replaced, and that's not the issue, but no one has the right to destroy or burn down someone else's property. It's just not the way we do things, so.
Don't have the right to burn down their own.
No, they can, if they want to, I wouldn't object too much if they want to be nutty enough to do it, but anyway, be aware, that's all we're asking you to do. Okay, and next on the agenda is the discussion and vote the draft May 8th, 2017 spring annual town meeting warrant articles. Mr. Units?
If we could just go through this, I hopefully get a lot of the articles.
You're hoping.
Article 2 is Chapter 90, Transportation Aid Program, to accept the funds that the state will give us for Chapter 90 aid. Right now, we're looking at the same number that we had last year, around $560,000. The hope was that the governor would increase that by $100 million, but as of right now, it's the $560,000.
Anyone have any questions?
I move to
Support Article 2.
Support Article 2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Units?
The next article is Article 5, Tree Service. I'd recommend that the town raise and appropriate $25,000 for this program. Keith's been very successful in the last couple of years getting caught up on some of the trees that need to be taken down, the larger ones, and the ones near wires that his guys can't handle. And he has used the money. Right now, he only has $7,000 left in this year's money, but he's been waiting for the weather to clear so he can go out and get all the damage that was done by the previous storms, so.
Yeah, wait till tomorrow. Any questions about Article number 5?
No. I move to support Article number 5.
Second.
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Units?
The next article is Article 7, Chapter 40B Legal Fund. I'm recommending that $10,000 be appropriated to go into the fund. Right now, we're down to $4,000 in our 40B account, and we know that we could have Turtle Crossing issues with that, and we
Island
also
Brook.
have Island Brook.
Island Brook.
So,
Bay Road Heights, Strawberry Fields.
right. So I'd recommend $10,000 be raised and appropriate.
So moved.
We have Article 7 to support the legal fund for Chapter 40B for $10,000. Motion? Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The next article would be Article 11. The Article 11 is a charter amendment to increase the number of members of the Water and Sewer Commission from 3 to 5, and to make those members appointed by the Board of Selectmen rather than elected. And The way that would work, if town meeting voted in support of this article on next year's April ballot, it would then have to be approved by the voters.
Those two steps.
Yeah. And
This May 8th would be the first step, and then next April would be the referendum on the ballot itself.
And anyone that's elected this April would hold their position until, if it was voted by the voters next April, their positions would end on that day. They don't finish out their positions, they end immediately.
And obviously, this is an enterprise account. Money is established, the guidelines are established by state statute. We're not changing the way the department operates and funds. We're not even thinking about trying to put it under the Prop 2.5 guidelines, because obviously we can't afford to do that, so it will continue to be an enterprise account. The difference would be having more members, 3 to 5. That would respond and would work directly under the town manager, as most other departments now do. So gives us better control of the department and allows us to, to approach it in a manner that makes sense. We haven't established guidelines as far as who would serve, in what capacity. There was some talk the other night at the FinCom meeting about, well, is it going to be like 5 people that don't know what they're doing? Well, us 5, we all started, we didn't know what we were doing either. So, along the way, it does change, but we, as a board, if this does go through, we should sit down and discuss what the so-called job would be, job description. I'm sure we want an engineer, a civil engineer on there that knows about this stuff. I'm sure we want to have somebody with some water background, some sewer background, maybe a couple of people at large. We can talk about that later on. We have a year to deal with that, if it gets that far. But in the meantime, it's just trying to take this position, which, for the most part, in the last few years, we've pretty much been appointing people anyway. Been very few times, I think I looked it up. I think there was one time in the last
Since 2006.
11 years, there's actually been a campaign for the seat, so. Anyway, that's Article 11. Is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to support Article 11.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Unanimous.
Article 12 is the water enterprise budget. The water enterprise budget contains 4 things. First is personnel services, the salary, $736,441. Second is the indirect expenses. Those are what the water department would pay to the town for use of services that we provide. And also, so that's $403,530. That includes portion of my salary, the treasurer's salary, the town accountant's salary. Also, any direct costs such as health insurance, they pay the full cost of the health insurance for their employees, life insurance, and any other benefits like that. The next item are other charges and expenditures, which is all their expenses, $1,119,450, and then debt service, $1,070,605, for a total water department budget of $3,330,026, which is a little less than 17,000 more than last year.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Yunus, could you just refresh my memory on why the jump in the other charges from 16 to 17?
I didn't bring their budget with me. I should have brought the whole budget package, but I didn't bring that with me.
It's just that I would have, if it,
From 16 to 17 is when they jumped.
yeah. And it's just that I would have thought if it was capital, wouldn't that be under debt service?
Capital's under debt service, yep. Other charges and expenditures, I know that they did have one, at one point, there was a requirement because of the quality of the water that they're using more of a certain chemical, and I know that was a huge increase in their expenses.
At that, it almost looked like it'd be easier to deliver
And-
Poland's
and-
water to
And
everybody.
and also, under there is the cost of the engineering services for the design of the water treatment plant.
Okay. That's probably it right there.
Any other questions?
No, but he mentioned water treatment plant. How are they doing on that? Just as a side
Still,
note.
still having issues with the study of Native Americans.
Thank you.
Quotation.
And I think, between the water and sewer, for those of us that, you hear a lot of times about Prop 2.5 override, and you hear things about, our taxes going up and all of that. This is one of those little sneaky accounts that continues to rise every year. And, obviously, we need water and we need the surge once we put it into an area, but, as a taxpayer, it's important to watch how we're paying out your tax dollars, but it's also important to watch your water rates and your water bill, because this is one that we don't have to vote on. This is set by the Water Sewer Commissioners. And $330,000 is probably in the top categories as far as our budget goes, our budget process. This is above and beyond 2.5, but I believe it's more than, probably somewhere around the same as police and fire, what we pay to maintain those two departments. So, just as an observation, if you want to know, how come your cash isn't stretching as far as it might have been a few years ago, here's a perfect example. In 2015, they expended $2,581,000. This year's $3,330,000. That's quite a bump. So, and I know the water treatment plant is on that, but still, something to watch.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Do we have to vote on Article 12 tonight? Could we look at the budget? Because Brad had a good point. It's about a $400,000 increase under other charges and expenditures, but personnel services went up $120,000.
I,
Unless you have an answer for me, because I'm like, wow, somebody got a good pay raise.
I know they did have somebody out on workers' comp, and we're waiting for the disability to be approved, and so that was the issue with that. That finally ended, and someone was hired.
I mean, if you want to, we can hold off and we can have them bring in some additional
Because
information.
that's why it was so high last year, and it's gone down this year. If you look at the personnel services.
18, yeah.
Because that person was out on workers' comp, but someone had to be hired to fill that position, so you had the crossover of the two, and then this year you don't have that, so that's why it's gone from $771,000 to $736,000.
That's still an $86,000
If you
increase.
want to get more information, we can talk about it at the next meeting. Just-
Well, does it,
Even the
it's more, I'm more curious, I mean, does it
Yeah.
put us in a tough spot if we wait one week on that article?
I mean, indirect expenses went from 381 to 403.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But look at the year before that. In 2016, it was 276, and went to 381.
The,
I mean, it's just,
the way those expenses are figured, so it affects the budget process, because what the water budget is, as a percentage of the size of the town budget, that's how the indirects are figured. So, in other words, if the water department went down, the percentage would go down, so the amount of indirects we get from the water department would also go down.
Okay.
If the water department budget went up and it was a greater portion of the town budget, then our indirects would go up also.
all right. You want to hold off?
I mean, if there's no reason not to, I would feel more comfortable just seeing the numbers.
Maybe bring some more information. We could talk more in detail about it.
Or, yeah, that would be good.
Article 13 is a sewer enterprise. You want to hold off on that one too and talk about both of them?
Sure.
Well, the sewer one looks like it's been pretty consistent. And I assume with the sewer, part of it is probably payments to the tri-town,
Right, that's,
Sewer district.
that's the other charges and expenditures that's in there,
so that would explain any fluctuation in that, I would think.
right? And the debt service is because of the work they just did.
With the
The pump
Plain
station.
Street and, yeah, I mean, the sewer one, I don't have a I mean, we can wait. I don't want to rush it through, but I personally don't have a problem with that one, because it seems to make sense to me. And
don't
I'm sure that if we approved the 2017, at the time, the bump was explained. I know there's got to be a reason. It wouldn't get stuck through, but I can see holding off on the water for the explanation. The sewer, I don't have a problem either way.
Looks like it's mostly in debt anyway,
Yeah.
the increase. Makes sense. Okay, Chairman entertain a motion to support Article 13.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay. What else you have?
The next article is Article 16, the operating budget. The Finance Committee voted to recommend the operating budget at their last meeting. Here's operating budget. And if you look at, when you receive that, if you look at the budget, we've added a column which makes it easier. The last column says proposed reductions, so you can see where the cuts had to be made to have a balanced budget out of each department. And the largest, you can see, obviously, is the fire department, which is 220. And the police personnel services, 29,000 had to be cut out of their overtime and all that in order to balance the budget. And out of the fire department, it was 2 positions that the chief was trying to add this year, and also 25,000 out of his overtime. One of the questions that did come up at the meeting by one of the Finance Committee members was, when does it become better to hire people to lower the overtime? And I mentioned that we have been doing that over the last few years, and if you, as you looked at the police budget, you could see that each year since 2015, the overtime has gone down a little bit, 2015, 16, 17, and proposed for next year. And then under the school budget, there was $1,081,000 cut from the school budget proposal. Their proposal was not a level services proposal. Their proposal was including adding full-day kindergarten and doing away with fees and everything else, so. And the total budget is $53,760,398. So it's a total cut of $1,231,139.
It's a lot of money.
Yep. Anyone have any questions?
Mike, what are you getting rid of under animal control for $7,700? Is that a part-time person?
It was overtime
Okay.
and some hours for the part-time person.
So just in case there's any questions out there, on the town side of the budget, We are reducing the town side by, general government reduction by $135,132 in order to create a level funded budget. $2,500 of that came from the assessors. We had police department personnel services, $29,000. Fire department personnel services, $73,944. Charges and expenditures under fire, $2,000. Emergency medical services, $9,000. Emergency planning, $100. Animal control officer, $7,700 in salaries reduced. Talked about the school department. Highway department had a $4,000 decrease in charges and expenditures. $300 under the Board of Health, charges and expenditures. Council on Aging, $188 off the personnel services, and $6,000 on the charges and expenses. Under the Veterans Agents, there's a $400 reduction under charges and expenses. And we have unemployment compensation. We've actually dropped that by $15,000 from a total on the town government side of $135,132. So, any questions? It has to be balanced, so. Chair, entertain a motion to support Article 16.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to support Article 16 for a total of $53,760,398. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
And just on the budget, we'll be working now to prepare a second budget, the B budget, that would be a budget that would be brought to town meeting if the override passes on April 25th. We just have to be prepared for that, and the Finance Committee will then review that budget. And then depending on what happens on April 25th, we'll know which budget gets brought forward at the town meeting.
So to be clear, the election is to vote as to whether or not we pay out, we increase the Proposition 2.5 to cover additional expenses. The second part of that will be the May 8th town meeting, where we will go to a town meeting with a balanced operating budget, which is what we just supported, or if at the election the override does pass, then the Finance Committee will go with Plan B, which will be including the override amount of dollars to increase the programs that we're talking about. So it's a two-step process. Everybody has to understand that. You have to go to the ballot and you have to vote. One way or the other, you have to do it. At town meeting, you can't sit at home and vote. You have to come to town meeting. We had a meeting tonight before this meeting to talk about the plans on how we're going to handle this. With 2,000 to 3,000 people in a town that's not designed, a form of government isn't designed to handle that kind of crowd. We're talking about the logistics and how we're going to transport people and how we can put everyone in one building and give everyone an opportunity to speak and ask questions and be heard and watch what's going on. It's a major undertaking. So if, in fact, it does pass at the ballot, the override passes the ballot, that's only the beginning of work. We're going to have to do a lot of work to put together a plan on how we can address the additional dollars and how we can control the crowds, how we can vote in a manner that isn't questionable. You know, we have to have a lot of different things in place in order to make it all happen, and we're just now beginning to start talking about that. Based on some of the values that we're looking at as far as additional equipment, renting equipment, video, audio, transportation, you know, we're probably looking at somewhere at a cost of between $30,000 to $40,000 to have this town meeting, if in fact it does pass at the ballot. So we're just now beginning to start planning that out, just in case we have to. Mr. Units?
The next article is Article 17. Under the new laws that were passed at the state, where we do this right now, setting up these revolving funds, we vote on them every year, but they're now requiring this to be a bylaw, and so this article would establish a bylaw that would accept the setting of revolving funds under General Law, Chapter 44, 53E and a half, and each year would set the dollar amounts for the expenditure limits out of those funds. So this would establish which funds, we already have these funds, but has to be done by the bylaw. 237 Mansfield Ave, the old Wendell Jackson property, a revolving fund. The forestry revolving fund. The home composting bin distribution program revolving fund. The recycling fund. The certified hazardous materials technicians revolving fund. And the council on aging revolving fund. And then you'll see the next part of this is establishing the expenditure limits that can be spent out of these funds each year. And so FY18 out of the revolving fund for the Mansfield Ave property would be $60,000. Out of the forestry revolving fund would be $30,000. Out of the home composting bin program would be $2,000. Out of the recycling fund, $10,000. Out of the certified hazardous materials technicians revolving fund, $10,000. And council on aging revolving fund, $10,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a limit, can't exceed that?
Right.
When was the last time the limits were increased?
Either last year or the year before. I
So
know
they have been updated?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what does it take if we ever had to raise the limit? Back to
Town meeting.
our meeting?
vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Chair, I need to entertain a motion to support Article 17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you.
The next article is Article 18, and this is for performance deposits, Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half. 53G and a half, if I forgot to say that. This allows you to create a separate account for a deposit of a financial guarantee to secure the performance of any obligation by an applicant as a condition of a license, permit, or other approval or authorizations. This is important because previously it was only allowed for the planning board to do that. Now any board can do this. So if the conservation or the Board of Health or Water and Sewer, like with 274 East Main, I know the Water and Sewer wanted to set up a revolving fund where they could have a consultant review the project down there, and they weren't allowed to do it because only the planning board could do that.
So this would allow even the, a 40B project to be,
Right.
that we can get additional support and help? Oh, that's good. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to support Article 18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you.
Article 19, if you look at, this is also part of the Municipal Modernization Act. Article 19, if you look, what would change, right now, if someone wants to pull a permit, and we always send any applications down to the treasurer's office, and they have to sign off that all taxes are current. But under the law right now, it's anyone that's over 12 months behind in taxes can be denied a permit. The new provision allows that to take out the 12-month requirement, so it could be anyone that's behind on their taxes. could be denied a permit. They'd have to go to the treasurer's office and either pay their taxes or set up a payment plan that's acceptable to the treasurer, and then the treasurer would sign off and they could pull their permit.
Sharon, I don't know if this probably has nothing to do with what I'm going to ask, but if somebody owes taxes, I was told that you can't run for public office, elected office. Is that true?
I would not think that would be true. I can't tell you that for sure, but I would doubt that.
Okay.
I'll check for you, but I would doubt that.
It's something that I just heard, but I had never heard it before other than,
You might not want to run for public office if you owe taxes, but
No,
I don't know if you can be barred.
I don't have the answer, so I just wanted to-
I'll let you know. But I think it's, when it comes to running for office, there aren't many restrictions on.
you don't need to show your tax
not
returns
gonna-
either.
Okay. Article 19, a vote to support Article 19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, okay.
And at the next meeting, I'll bring the capital plan.
Yep.
And the water budget.
Yep.
And
Okay.
a few of the articles at the bottom, we'll probably wait till the end. We're probably not going to move action on stabilization, OPEB.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Town Manager, update on town cleanup.
Keith and I met this week with a student from Wheaton who's going to work with us on the town cleanup day. I'd like to thank him for stepping forward on that. And what we're working on now, he's checking with the college. We were going to be 8 to 12, and his suggestion was that he talked with the guy from the state that also works on Mansfield's cleanup, and 9 to 12 is usually the time, because 4 hours is a long time for people to be out there. So we're looking at maybe changing the time to 9 to 12. It will be the last Saturday in January. We're looking to see if there's a possibility of using the Haas Center at the end of the cleanup to bring people over for hamburgers and hot dogs.
So the last Saturday in January?
Did I say January? April. And Keith has identified some streets. I could just read them off, that are targeted streets that he'd like to see worked on. And if people are interested in adopting their street, feel free. Bay Road, Plain Street, Burt Street, Pine Street, Leonard Street, Crane Street, East Main, Newland, Newcomb, North Washington, Reservoir, 140 Mansfield Ave, Freeman, Smith Street, Oak Street, Walker Street, North Worcester Street, Richardson Ave, Pleasant Street, Eddy Street, John Scott Boulevard, Maple Street, West Hodges, Dean, East Hodges, South Worcester, Woodward Street, Power Street, Summer Street, Barrows Street, Clapp Street, and Taunton Ave. And we're working on getting gloves and getting reflective vests for people that'll be working on some of those main roads. And the college kids, he's organizing teams over there. They'll be on the streets, the busiest streets, so we keep younger kids off of the busiest streets.
Very good. Any
Did
questions?
you say you had a student from the college and from the high school?
He was contacting the high school. We don't.
Oh, he's from the college, and he's going to reach out to the high school?
He's going to reach out to the high school and see if someone from there will organize volunteers from the high school.
They did it last year on their own. The high school did the environmental science teacher
Right.
over there.
This year, we want to make it, obviously do a better job of advertising it, because I don't think half of us even knew it happened last year, so.
Yeah, we're working on a flyer. We're just waiting to see if we'll get the Haas Center for the lunch at the end.
Okay,
If that's the last piece we're waiting for.
okay, sounds great. Questions? Okay. Under appointments and resignations, retirements, we have an appointment of Felicia Noonan as a part-time secretary in the assessor's office. Any question, anything you want to say, Mr. Yunus?
We had a lot of applicants for the position, and one of the things that it drives me crazy personally is Indeed. It's just thousands of applications come through. But we were able to narrow it down to some people that had some experience in the real estate field, and felt that Felicia was the best for the position, the part-time position in the assessor's office.
Mr. Chairman, we have a notice to the Board of Selectmen from Michael D. Units, Town Manager, dated March 27, 2017, regarding notice of appointment for a part-time secretary. I hereby notify the Board of Selectmen, in accordance with the provisions of Article 4, Section 2B of the Norton Charter, that acting in my capacity as the appointing authority, I have appointed the following individual as a part-time secretary in the Assessor's Office: Felicia Noonan. The appointment was made on March 27, 2017, in accordance with the provisions of the Norton Charter, and will be effective April 11, 2017, unless the Board of Selectmen votes to accept or reject the appointment prior to said date. However, I specifically request the Board's acceptance of this appointment with an effective date of April 3, 2017.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. Next, we have an appointment of a part-time secretary in the Conservation Office.
Next meeting.
Next meeting? Okay. Put that on the next agenda. We have a vote to appoint Miriam Mimi Pavi to the Board of Registrars to fill the Democratic vacancy created by the resignation of Janet C. Monica, which became effective on June 1st, 2016. Mrs. Pavi's term will expire on June 30th, 2017. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, the board chair will entertain a motion to appoint Miriam Pavi to the Board of Registrars.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Selectmen report mail, Mr. Salvo.
Mr. Chairman, I just have to clarify something so the people at home can understand, not be confused. This election that we're having on April 25th is to vote for your candidate as desired that are running for reappointments, and also to vote for the override on a ballot on this April 25th. The next election will be held on June 6th, is to fill the position of a vacancy for the Selectmen, for Mr. Gilman's vacancy on April 6th. So I just got to make a point that I've been hearing there's some confusion, that the April 25th election is to vote for the override, yea or nay, and to vote for your candidates that are running for office. June 6th will be for the three candidates that are up to fill a vacant seat in the Board of Selectmen.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Bramwell?
All set, thank you.
Mr. Steele?
No.
Forum? Forum?
Yeah, I figured you would.
Oh, you want me to do it? Okay. We want to remind everyone that Monday night, next Monday night, the third, yeah, I want to be sure I got the right date. Monday the 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Norton High School. We're having the first of two public forums regarding the Proposition 2.5 override. Mr. Yunus will be running the meeting, and it's designed for people to be able to come out and ask questions. We're not going to get into debates. We're not going to get into the what-ifs of what this is all about. If you have any questions you want answered, this is going to be your opportunity to come out and see if we can get some answers. We may not have them all, but we'll try to give you as many answers to your questions as we possibly can. The board obviously would like to extend our condolences, Mr. Yunus. You lost his brother-in-law yesterday, suddenly, and to you and your family, we extend our condolences. And we actually appreciate the fact that you're here tonight helping us out, just going above and beyond. And even to the point where this public forum on Monday, the funeral is Monday morning, and Mr. Yunus is going to be there Monday night to assist us. So we really do appreciate your extra effort on that. And again, our condolences. One other thing, there is a You didn't do the notice of public hearing?
No, I didn't do that.
Okay. Finance Committee will conduct a public hearing in accordance with the Town Charter, Article 6, Section 3C of the proposed fiscal year 2018 operating budget as submitted by the town manager for the town of Norton. The public hearing will be held on April 19th, 2017, at 7:30 PM in the Norton Municipal Center, 70 East Main Street, Norton, Massachusetts. Copy of the proposed budgets are available in the town manager's office in the Municipal Center. That's probably too early for that. Okay. Okay, on the warrants and minutes. Mr. Salvo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to approve the biweekly payroll for the period ending March 25th, 2017, warrant number 58, dated March 30th, 2017, in the amount of $193,597.17.
Second.
Motion and a second on warrant number 58. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Mr. Salvo.
Chairman, I'd like to approve bill warrant 59, dated March 30th, 2017, in the amount of $1,333,698.09.
Second.
Motion and a second on warrant number 59. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you. We don't have any minutes. We'll have some on the next meeting. Next meeting's agenda, we have Elizabeth J. Taylor Rossi, Director of the COA, to discuss human services and give us an update. And we also have Nancy Munson, the CEO of Bristol Elder Services, coming in for an update. We'll continue to talk about the draft on the spring annual town meeting on the next meeting. Anyone else have anything else you want to bring up? Next meeting?
Chairman, do we have an executive session?
Are we having exec?
Yeah.
Where's my form? I have to read
Is it
something.
under there?
The laws have changed. So we have to
Just got to
declare.
change.
Okay, yeah.
You'll have to input what.
Actually, okay, I got you. Okay. The answer is yes.
Okay, I just checking. I read it, I wasn't sure.
Took me a minute to get there, but yeah, there is. So is there anything else under open session? Seeing none, I declare under General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection A3, that for the purposes of the executive session, there will be discussed a strategy with respect to bargaining and contract negotiation with non-union personnel. Because the discussion of strategy in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session and the board or to return or not to return to open session at the conclusion of the open session.
I move that the board go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A3, for the purposes and reasons declared by the chairman, and the board will not return to open session thereafter.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have to put that back so I can find it next time. Don't anybody take this now? Okay. Any further question, discussion? Seeing none. Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Salvo?
Yes.
Mr. Bramwell?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Thank you.